Welcome everybody to the 9/11 Tribute Museum's Real Talks at Home program. Today you'll be hearing personal stories from 9/11 first responder and recovery worker Andy Kubenko, as well as Steve Cascarelli, who is also a 9/11 first responder. This program is actually meant to really give you a more comprehensive understanding of what it was like to be down at Ground Zero. You know, how and basically connecting how one event can have multiple perspectives. So we're really hoping through this conversation that you have a more well-rounded understanding of what actually happened on 9/11 and in the days and afterwards. So if you have any questions for Steve and Andy as you watch this program, please add them to the comment section and we'll get them over to Steve and Andy for them to answer those questions for you. So I will give the floor to Andy and Steve to have a chat about life before 9/11, 9/11, and the year since 9/11. And then I'll be back at the end of the program to wrap things up. So, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Steve, you and I were both introduced together into the training of tribute. And what I distinctly remember you telling me, we never worked together in the fire department, even though the both of us were New York City firefighters. But the connection is there because it's certainly a brotherhood. And looking at this from, I always start this saying that it is from a firefighter's perspective, because there were other people who worked in the building. That's one perspective. There were people who had relatives or friends that were killed. That certainly is another perspective. And there were people who lived in the area. However, what is a stark thing that I remember from what you had said was you were in the firehouse where you had been a lieutenant, I believe, and
Yes.
the teleprinter kept going off, and it showed companies that were missing, and you kept putting it on the bed. As the teleprinter, you were taking the pieces of paper off the teleprinter and putting it on the bed. And this was a stark realization of how devastating the attacks on 9/11 were for the New York City Fire Department. So I leave it, you can take it from there.
Yeah. Well, as far as that morning is concerned, you're right. I had already been in the firehouse from the night before. So, I kind of go from the night before, which was a routine night, I'm sure, as you know, in the firehouse. And before I had gotten my company engine 221, I'm sorry, 225 engine in East New York, I had worked with the field communication unit. I know you're familiar with that. For those that are listening, it's a very unique unit in the city. There's only one in the entire city of New York, and they only go out on major fires, major incidences, and they assist the chief in charge in maintaining the fire scene. They assist the chief with communication, logistics. They know where all the units are in the building, whether they're on R&R or they were sent back home to the firehouse, including a bunch more things. So as Andy was telling you, when those tickets were coming through with these missing units, that 2 years of experience with the field communication unit, it kind of kicked in, because now I'm trying to, in a way, trying to figure out where these guys were. I mean, I kind of knew, just like you said, but I was trying to keep a record of it in the meantime. And just as you said, the realization of it came in that there was something very wrong. I mean, not having gone down there yet and understanding the how widespread the damage was, and how all the people that were eventually lost there after we found out a couple of weeks to a month later. But at the moment, the realization of what could have been the impact really was starting to a realization to me at that time, when I was when I was collecting those tickets. I swear, Andy, I forgot about that conversation. I never really thought about those tickets again until you had just mentioned them now.
Right.
So, but in any event, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Andy?
Well,
You at
you
the
know what?
time?
I heard I was going to do this together with you. I find it ironic that when I retired from the fire department, I had become a school teacher. I was a school teacher for 4 years, teaching Spanish. And you also, when you retired from the fire department, I believe you were a principal. Is that correct? Of the school.
Yeah,
And
I was. I taught for about 8 or 9 years and then got promoted. Yeah.
right. So I find that unique that we both
It is.
were educators after we retired from the fire department. Um,
Right.
I another thing that I find is not just with you and with me, but how many people retired from the fire department and came back to tribute to tell our story, which I think is
Yes.
it's not only commendable, but it's something that it's in our soul. It's something that has to be taught, has to be told.
Yeah.
It could never be forgotten. And that's another
Correct.
thing that's impressed me very positively as far as all the people that I've met in tribute. And not only that, we get the perspective of how it was for people who had worked in the building, people
Mhm.
who lost people. I mean, and people who lived in the area. It's a contrast as to like the both of us because we're looking at things from a firefighter's perspective. But coming down here, it
Yes.
was well for me personally. Um, I'm also a Vietnam veteran, and I remember
Mhm.
not facing there were horrors in Vietnam, and but I made a pilgrimage to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial when it opened,
Good.
and I've been going back there ever since every Veterans Day. And I realized that it's something that I owe to the people that I was in Vietnam with, and it could have been very easily, my name could have been on that wall. So
Sure.
this is something else that's happened, and I look at the firefighters memorial on the west wall of engine 10 and ladder 10, and I say to myself, well, there, but for the grace of God, my name could have been there also. So it's something that I feel
Mm.
as if God gives me the grace to go on for as long as I live. Two places I will be on Veterans Day at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, and on September 11th I will be at Second Street, where Engine 28 and Lateral 11 are, where I was the captain,
Mhm.
and uh, there was 6 members of Lateral 11 that were killed on 9/11. So uh, that's a commitment that I feel I have to make. And uh, but you tell me your story in reference to why we're here.
To why we're here. Well, I guess it's very similar to you. Uh, certain respects. I feel that i- as people that did experience it the way we did, responding there and then working it, uh, and going through our experiences, uh, so that this isn't forgotten, that we do take part in trying to be, as we both are educators, and educate the public on what happened. Um, I mean, there's so many stories to 9/11. And the basic one is that there were 7 buildings there, 2 planes hit it, the towers collapsed, and we know that story. That's a common story. And it's an extremely important one. But all the individual stories that have evolved from it, and we're just two, even to people that were members of the New York City Fire Department, our experiences are still or the story that we tell is very personal to us and very different from one another, even though we were both there working it from the fire department. Um, and I think all of our stories are important. I consider my story maybe not as compelling as other people I have heard that were there, whether they were from the fire department or somebody that worked in it and just made it out of the buildings by the skin of their teeth, somebody that lost uh, a friend or a family member there. Uh, I feel my story pales to theirs, but I think the little bit that I do tell is somewhat unique and gives just another perspective as to what happened down there and what people like you and me went through working there. I mean, when I look at that memorial too, Andy, on the side of the 10 house, you know, I look at it very similarly to you. I don't really tell it that much, but I feel like my name could have been on that wall too. That morning, when the planes hit, and being I had a relationship with the field communication unit, I knew they were there, and I knew they were there early without even having to pick up a phone call, because that's what
Yeah.
they do. They go out to major incidences. And being they were there and being the dedicated fighters that you and me are, including the people that you and I worked with too, because everybody was chomping at the bit to get down there. And then the light bulb went off. Says, you know what? Let me make a phone call to dispatch. One of them, I called Brooklyn, and I introduced myself to them. I told them who I was. And they knew who I was because of my relationship with Fieldcom. And I asked them, look, can you get us down there? I says, I know they're going to need another set of ears on the radios down there. I says, I'm here right now. Get me in, relocate me, and have another officer take charge of my unit, and I'll go work with the Fieldcom. So they told me to stand fast for 10 minutes. They got back to me about 10 minutes later, and they says, okay, look, we spoke to them. This is, they know you're there. They appreciate you wanting to come down, but they want you to wait there until further notice. They'll call you down later now that they know that you're on duty. And I hung up the phone. I told the guys, we got to wait and see if we're going to go, which we eventually did later on. However, if they had said yes to me, you know, come down now, we're turning you out. Me and my unit would have been down there prior to, I'm taking a good guess, even prior to the first collapse, definitely the second one. We would have been there. We would have been in harm's way. So that phone call, it sometimes, as it's doing right now, it sends like a shiver up my spine, because that phone call, if I would have survived and my crew didn't, Andy, that wouldn't have been a good day. Today, 19 and a half years later, would not have been a good day for me because of a phone call, you know? So, you know, it's just another one of my stories. It's a short one, but I think not just for me, I think it shows just the dedication of what you explained before. You know, we want to go in, we want to go down, we want to help. You know, it's our job to be in harm's way, just like a police officer. And they put themselves in harm's way between, you know, with the public. So anyway, that was just, you know, looking at that monument, thinking it could have been one more, could have been five more. I don't know.
Right.
You know, so somebody from up above, I think, was looking down and told the dispatcher, not now, leave him where he is until later, you know?
Right. Yes. You know, another, again, this is from a firefighter's perspective. Another thing that I found absolutely amazing was when I stayed in the firehouse for a couple of weeks, and this is a repeat of the story when I gave my own video. However, there were 12 Chicago firefighters that showed up to our firehouse, and they said, you know what, you guys,
How early in the operation?
about a week after. This is about a week after. Remember,
Really?
there
Okay.
was nothing
Wow.
flying. In fact, there was no cell phone service. There was no phones at all for the first day or two.
No.
But these guys, they drove in their cars and they drove to New York City, and they told us, "You give us a CNI dog, and you guys go to bed for, we'll fight fires for you for the next 24 hours. But to show that,
Wow.
to show what a brotherhood this is, when Mayor Giuliani said to attend funerals, and the first funeral I attended in Staten Island, there were just 9 retired firefighters. There was no pumper to carry the casket. There was no bagpiper. But then later on, I mean, weeks later, when there were funerals, there were thousands of firefighters, not only from around the United States, but I mean from around the world. I couldn't get over this. There
Yeah.
were firefighters from
Yeah.
London, from Paris, from Rome, from Madrid, from Hamburg, from you name it. They were there. And as you know, we lost
Yeah.
49 rigs. And the amazing thing is these fire departments provided pumpers. They provided bagpipers, whatever we needed. They gave it to us, including deferring, taking fire trucks that were on order. They gave them to New York City so we could be up and running. Seagrave and American LaFrance were producing fire trucks. They were making them 24/7. They were working around the clock. And these other cities said, like Boston and Baltimore and Washington D.C. They said, "Well, give it to New York. Let them. We got these old rigs, but you give it to them so they can take care of New York City." And this
Yep.
really impressed me. I mean, this was like I get choked up just thinking about it. How all these guys it is truly
Yeah.
a brother and sisterhood to be a firefighter. And I just
Yep.
can't get over the way these guys from all over the world just stepped up, and this was like they took it personally. That 343 guys
Yeah.
that we lost,
Yeah.
they took it personally, and they were going to do everything for us that
Yeah.
they possibly could. And I'll
And they
always
did.
be, like this is an overwhelming event for me. It's
In
something
gratitude
like
to it.
so
Yeah.
proud that I was a firefighter. But I don't want to dominate this, so you
Yes.
take it from there. Go ahead.
No, no, no. No, well, I have a very similar story to you. Once my unit got down there that day, it was not, now it was shortly after the collapses. Uh, uh, the chiefs in charge didn't know I was there, so they pulled me off the pile and reassigned me to field comm. Right, like I was talking about earlier, they did finally send me there. So they gave my crew to another officer. In any event, I don't know how long it was, maybe 2 weeks later, I feel a tap on the back of one of my shoulders. I turn around, and it was a crew of firefighters, very similar to you, from Buffalo, New York. All right.
Yeah.
So, and there was roughly a dozen of them, and they were begging me, give us something to do. And the chiefs in charge was saying, look, we got too many people crawling around out there, not right now. So I turned around, I told them, and they asked me again, look, you got to give us something to do. Again, they came down to help. They were firefighters. They were experiencing the same pain you and me were. 343 of this brotherhood, as you stated. And I looked at the chief. I says, is there anything we can have these guys do? I mean, anything. So he looked around. He says there was a huge pile of debris about maybe 10 yards away from us. It was in fact kind of in the way, but we were dealing with it.
Yeah.
So he says, see if these guys can put all of that somewhere else. Just get it out of the way. I turned around. I says, if you can find some shovels, can you move that pile? You
Right.
got it. I don't know where the hell they found these shovels from. In about a half an hour, this huge pile of debris that was there, it was plowed out of the way so they could get trucks, other fire engines in and out.
Right.
And that thing disappeared. It was gone. I was amazed how quickly they did it. But yeah, it's just an expression, again, just like you said, of the brotherhood. They wanted a piece. They wanted to help out, get involved.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was something we could give them to do. It made them happy to, I have no idea how much, but they were really glad they were able to help out. They ended up disappearing. They probably got involved in some other activity somewhere else. I really don't know where, but yeah, as far as that brotherhood is concerned, boy, I tell you, you could feel it. It's there. A number of months later, before they had finished cleaning up, I was fortunate enough to take a trip out to uh, uh, California. You may have heard about the trip. I don't know. Maybe we're even there. They were doing a dedication of a monument in the Folsom Clovis town area of California. It's south
Uh-huh.
of Sacramento. I don't know if you know of it. There were a couple of planes that were chartered, and I managed to get on the plane and go. It was like for 3 days and 2 nights. It was a quick little thing.
Right.
So while I was there, I had a few extra days, and I took a trip. Actually, I hopped on a train and headed up north to Sacramento. I have family there.
Okay.
My father's youngest sister with her family lives there. They took me out to dinner. I'm trying to make a long story short. They took me out to dinner. I had nothing fire department on. I didn't want to be recognized, and we stopped in this little town somewhere, and we ordered a meal. We just sat and chatted a little bit, and my uncle told later, I think they knew a few people there. They introduced them to me and told them who I was. Says,
Right.
"You're from New York City? Were you there? Blah blah blah." Yes, I was. I tried to like lay it low.
Yeah.
He says, "I'll be right back." And she went in the back. She made a phone call to her boyfriend or her husband, and he wanted to come down and meet me. So he did. We talked a little bit. I had an extra patch with me. I gave it to him. It was like a piece of gold at the time. And
Yeah. Right.
he says, we did, talking about those extra fire engines that we were getting. Little communities throughout the country were taking up donations. And they knew how many fire trucks, fire engines that were completely destroyed, and we were shorthanded. And they took up a collection and did in fact purchase one, and it was going to be delivered as soon as it came off the
Wow.
line.
That's something.
A little town like this, way out in California, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, it was
Right.
very heartwarming. So to complete this little story, I hope it's a little story in California, in whatever little town it was in. My uncle asked for the check. Actually, I asked for the check. I wanted to take my aunt and uncle out and appreciate their hospitality to me. And my uncle said, no, we were going back. The front of the waitress came over and says, you're not paying anything. He says, we picked up the check for you. I says, don't do that. I says, at least leave you a tip. She says, no, everything's
Huh.
taken care of. Thank you
Right.
for your service. Now get out of here. She didn't quite say it like that, but they just did the right thing. And I looked up my aunt, my aunt is a sister now. She's so much younger than him. She's only 8 years older than me. I was closer to
Wow.
her in age than my father is. And
Huh.
in any event, she broke down in tears. She couldn't fathom the generosity of people, what was going on. And I
Yes.
sat next to her. I tried to console her a little bit. I says, look, that's why I don't like to wear my fire gear out right now, because it brings a lot of attention, and I appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the attention, but I don't want it. I don't need to act like a movie star and all. That's not what I did. That's not what we're all about, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
But anyway, it was just another like very, very offshoot kind of a story to the whole thing. My aunt got a chance to going through as far as the generosity of absolutely complete strangers.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know it was very, very heartwarming. Yeah, and she got to experience a little bit of it, which I was kind of pleased about it. Unfortunately, a number of years later, she passed away from cancer, but
Oh.
I was glad she was able to experience a little bit of that on
Yeah.
kind of like on my behalf, on the city's behalf, because she was born
Yeah.
and raised in the city too, and so was her husband. They moved out to California many years ago. So
Right.
anyway, tiny little story, just a tail off of what you were telling.
Right. Well, you know what? another thing, I leave for Florida this Tuesday. I spent
Mhm.
I spend half the year in Florida, and I was very fortunate in the fact we have a 343 club where I live in the Villages in Florida, and
Oh, really? Wow.
yeah, I was honored they wanted me not just for the organization, but the villages where I live. They have their own fire department, and
Mm,
and so the entire fire department actually, I did this 3 times. I had a PowerPoint presentation and I explained what happened on 9/11 from then again, a firefighter's perspective. And I tell
sure,
you what, these young guys, and they're all very young because I mean, we're approaching 20 years since this happened. Uh,
sure.
Let me tell you something. Firefighters are 21st century knights. They really are.
Mm,
These young kids, they are so idealistic. Most of their 80% of their runs are EMS. But
mm,
they you know they are absolutely so idealistic, and uh, you know uh, I'm thinking of all that we're going through some tough times, not just with COVID, but the people. We're a very divided country, unfortunately now. But I think the goodness of people, we have the potential to like with the way we came together after 9/11. I think we have
yes.
that potential again. And
Yeah.
Americans truly care about Americans. I mean, you look at what
Mhm,
everybody thinks of the military. They're very respected today. And
mhm.
I think, like in a couple of months when we have a new president or the old president, or this COVID thing comes under control, I believe things are going to get much better, and the people
Mhm.
you could look up to are people who are nurses and doctors and firefighters and police officers, and like the people in tribute. And I truly believe the future is going to bode much better for us. I mean, this has been a
I
real
think.
tough year, 2020. Good riddance to 2020, and I believe things are going to get much better. I'm an optimist. What can I
Yeah,
say? So
good
anyway,
for you. But I feel similarly. I think it's gonna take a little time, but, yeah, I think once everything settles down and, people have a chance to, reflect on what happened this year, I think we'll get a better understanding of each other, and things will get better. It's my hope. It's my hope also. It really
yeah.
is. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
So,
yeah. So well, that's it from my perspective, the way things were. And then again, the people in tribute are just phenomenal people, and we got a different perspective from the other people also, the people who were survivors.
oh my
and
gosh, yeah, yeah.
and I'm glad we got introduced to that, because we're almost like a closed society in the fire department. However, you could see these other stories are very heart-wrenching and actually heartwarming too. So anyway, so I don't have anything else.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to hop back in because it sounded like you guys were kind of wrapping up, but I'm glad that you guys were able to mention, how people came together in the aftermath of 9/11, and, how united we were as a country. And I think that's
Yeah,
really
we were.
Oh,
poignant thing to, note because, as you note that at this point in time where, our divisions are being, exposed in a sense, but a lot of it is just superficial, and it's for lack of a better word, trumped up by certain people for their own,
yeah.
their own purposes.
Good
But
choice of words,
Very
Quaker.
good, Quaku, very good.
but when you actually have an opportunity to really, in times of crisis, unfortunately, that's usually the point when we really come together. But it shouldn't take a tragedy for us to come together. At the end of the day, we're all Americans, we're all citizens of the world, and ultimately we're better we're better together, we're stronger together, than we are
Absolutely.
apart. So
Mhm.
Amen.
hopefully by hearing your stories, and hearing the acts of goodwill that were imparted upon you guys, people understand that and
Mhm.
remember that, it doesn't cost anything to be nice to one another. It doesn't
Good point.
cost a thing to smile at somebody. It doesn't cost a thing to do a good deed. And, we have to remember that and just keep on doing more of that, because if we really want to live in a world where, everybody's happy and prosperous, we just have to take it upon ourselves to, just be kind to one another and, be considerate of one another. So I'm really glad that you both mentioned that. And, I hope that, everybody watching this, but particularly the younger people who are watching this, who I'm sure, who, if they weren't alive, when 9/11 happened, this is their first large scale, traumatic, event of their lifetime, where, you're having, mass casualties. So, for one, understand that, the resilience of the 9/11 community is an example for you. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And it's always important to remember that and keep the hope and keep the faith alive, that you can get through difficult times. And Andy and Steve are just two examples of that, as are, the entire 9/11 community. And, just the courage and the strength, and just the service, being of service to your community, is something that is really, really important, just being a helping hand, remembering the helpers and being a helper is important. So we really hope that you all take, something from, both of their stories and, their message towards the end of the program as well, because the goal of our community and the museum is to really inspire people to, make a change in their community and just be better citizens of the world and of their community. So I want to just thank you both for participating in this program. It's always an honor to speak with you guys and be around you guys. Um,
Our pleasure, Quaker.
and I'm glad to hear that you're coming back to New York. And they won't understand, but I'm gonna send you your awards from last year.
Okay.
You'll get those sometime next week.
All right. Very good, Quaker. I appreciate it.
Thank you both for doing this, and thank you all for watching. Again, if you have any questions for Andy and or Steve, please feel free to add them to the comment section of this video and get those questions over to get them answered for you. So that's going to wrap things up. Thank you
All
both,
right.
and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Okay. Bye-bye now. See
All
you.
right.